and they tend to kind of make up rules as they go along. So in that, there's maybe some cheating, maybe not some cheating going on. So sometimes we kind of differ about what games we want to play. So, but we have fun either way.
That's good. That's good. Well, my husband and I, one of the things that we like to do for fun is we like to watch old black and white movies. We are classic movie buffs. So I would say that's one of the things. Honey, what would you say is another thing that we enjoy?
Movies, Hitchcock.
Yes, we're
noir. I think that's the most of it.
Yeah. Okay. And when it comes to games, we play one game that we've been playing lately together. It's a word game. And my husband has discovered my secret as to why I'm so many more levels ahead of him, but I won't tell.
We played Rummy together every now and then.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that's about it.
Okay. All right. So now I want to start off by asking the couples, what is the best marital advice someone has given you? So this time we're going to start off with the Randolphs.
I can say some of the best advice that I've ever received was don't fight. Because fighting indicates a winner and a loser. But when you're married and you fight because you're one, you both lose. So it's okay to disagree, but don't fight.
The best marriage advice that I received was never use the word divorce. That shouldn't be in our vocabulary, because that just leads to us just giving up, and that's of course not in God's plan. So we don't even use that word anytime that we're discussing anything.
Oh, and actually that's very good, because my husband and I, that's one thing. It's not something that someone else told us or advised us to do, but it's something that him and I had decided in our marriage, that we don't ever mention the word divorce. It's never an option. We can get as angry as we want to with one another, but that word never enters our vocabulary. All right, Versa.
Some of the best advice I think that I remember getting before I got married was to really just treat my husband with respect. That can go a long way. Just being respectful of him as a man, being respectful of him as a person and as the head of our family. I think that I remember being told that by my grandmother or my mom, just respect your husband. He is the man and he deserves to be treated as such. Not that I'm, bowing down to him and, he's walking over me. It's not that, but I respect him as the man of our house. And I think that's something that goes a long way in our marriage.
Yeah. And I would add too, one of the other pieces of advice I think that we received, I was told a while back, was to spend time with like-minded couples. And when you're married, when you were single, you hung out with your friends, and they were single and you did single things. But now that you're married, you want to make sure that when you are spending time with other people, you are spending time with people who are like-minded, have the same goals, and can relate to where you are in life.
Very good. Honey, what would you say was the best one that was given to you?
I would say, again, I'm not one that really sought after counseling advice outside of marriage, but observing good marriages. I watched a couple of deacons in our old church, how they were Christian gentlemen. I loved how I saw them opening doors for their wives. Driving the car around to the front. It was cold in Illinois, and picking them up. I admired seeing my father work untiringly to provide, and he provided for my mother and us first, and his needs were taken care of afterwards. So I learned from that how to be a Christian gentleman and to put my family needs in front of mine.
I can't say I sought out marital advice either. And I guess it's because we got married pretty young.
It wasn't really
talked then.
About. Yeah,
yes.
It really wasn't.
It was just, we saw people and they were just married. It's, we didn't know about the inner workings behind the marriage. So it's a lot of things we were kind of, we had to discover for ourselves, find out what worked for us. And then also some things that we had decided early on. Like we just mentioned before about, you don't use the word divorce. We don't call each other out of our names, no matter how angry we get. So some things that we decided to put into place early on, I think are things that kind of helped us throughout our marriage. Okay, for the couples, I would like to ask, expectation versus reality. What is some advice you would give your newly married self about setting realistic expectations of your spouse in marriage? So who wants to go first?
Start. I would definitely, since we're so close to our newly married selves, it's kind of easy to remember. But I would say one thing that I definitely had to learn was that when you get married, you're marrying another entire person, and they're already grown up. They already have their likes and dislikes. They have completely different experiences than you have. And that makes a big difference. It's one thing when, you grow up with somebody, you're raised in the same household, you know the ins and outs, you have the same teaching, there's not a whole lot of variation. But when you meet somebody else, it's like, oh, wait, you don't do that. It was, and still is a huge learning curve.
So, Sister Deanna, so what do you think about when people say to you, oh, I married my other half or my better half, or this person completes me?
No such thing. There's no such thing. They are a whole person and you are a whole person, and you have to learn how to be a whole person together. More like a 1 × 1 = 1 rather than a 1 + 1 or a half plus a half.
Okay.
Don't complete you.
All right, verses.
I kind of like Deanna was saying, we got married young, and I don't think that's any different. Something I guess I didn't realize when I first got married was that he was his own person. And I didn't understand that I was not marrying a half of a person. I was getting a whole person because we were very young. So I thought, oh, he's coming to make me whole, because that's just what I thought. I was young. So I think that if I could go back and tell myself, it's just that you're not marrying a half a person. He's a whole man with his own thoughts and feelings and his own mind about things. And I think in the beginning of our marriage, we gave a lot because we thought we had to do that for each other. Oh, I has to be this way because I have to make you happy in this way. We weren't our whole self with each other. It took some time and some growing before we really had conversations that were honest conversations. Because when we first got married, we were just like, oh, yay, okay, all right, if that's what you say. But that's not what I really felt. But I felt like I needed to just go along with it because I didn't know any better. So I would go back and tell myself to be yourself, be your whole person. You're gaining a whole person, and just be honest with each other from the get-go. I do think we spent some time hiding some things from each other at the beginning because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, or I didn't know how to talk to him about it. So we didn't talk about it. So that's something that I would definitely go back and just kind of tell myself, do that differently.
Yeah, that's so funny because before you jump in, I just wanted to hit on that a little bit, because I think it was similar in our marriage. When it came to talking, I was the one who was always scared. Oh my gosh, I just kept everything in because I was afraid of, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to upset him. So I spent a lot of years doing that, and just kind of deferring to him because, just to keep the peace, I thought. Is just keep deferring until, as we progress in our marriage, I learned to have my own voice and know that my voice matters. My voice is important, and that he thought my voice was important. So I think that was kind of a learning process for us also. Derek, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, and again, when you don't do that, unfortunately, a lot of times, and I think for us, it ended up being a huge blow up, because finally it was, hey, I am my own person. I have my own voice. And, you know, the other person was saying, well, I didn't know you felt like that.
That made me sad.
You didn't say anything for like the last 10 years.
You didn't really want to do that? I didn't know. That like hurt my feelings that he'd been holding that. And so I guess I'm being transparent. It was me, the one that was always getting my way. But, you know, I didn't know. And when he finally said, I don't really like that, I'm like, oh, I didn't know. And it did hurt my feelings a little bit at first. But, you know, with maturity, you know, some growth, we got past it. But sorry.
Oh, sorry. It's okay. We've grown.
Well, I think I learned later, and I wish I would have known this earlier, when to stop asking, why aren't you talking? What's wrong? I guess I'm the kind of man that wants to fix things and make everything right. And so I could tell, you know, that she wasn't talking and that something was wrong, but she didn't want to say what it was. And so, you know, with my ambitious self and industrious self, I'm gonna fix it and fix her. So I'll say, what's wrong? What's wrong? You ain't talking. And if I could, I would say, you know what? When she wants to tell me what it is, she'll tell me what it is. Yes. But in my, you know, desire to fix her, because she needed fixing, so I thought I'd ask and ask and ask. It's like kind of pouring salt on the wound. Yes. And then she'd get emotional, and then I would feel bad, like, well, you know, so I would tell myself, if she ain't talking, leave her alone. She'll talk when she wants to.
Yes, because I have a process. I have to process things, and before it's a long process. I call it my 3-day process. Yeah. I call it my 3-day process, where if you say something and I'm upset about it, I can't respond on day 1 because I'm too angry. So I just stay quiet. Day 2, I replay everything that was said, and then I start replaying in my head how I'm going to respond to this now that I'm not angry or whatever. And then when I get to day 3, I'm ready to talk. Or I've forgotten about it, we move on. But I know for you, it was a little different because you like to, okay, something's wrong, let's talk about it, fix it, move on, bum, 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 bum. And I guess, is it that way for most men or for some?
Yes, I am ready. I am ready to deal with it. We got things to do. We can't be stuck here.
I'm not complaining, I'm venting. Okay, well, I'll give you the solution to your vent.
And I think for us, the challenging piece also is that I'm a huge extrovert. So I already love to talk anyway, and she's an introvert. So I think it's like multiplied by 5 when I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Can I fix it? Can I do something? Can I help you? What can I do? And, you know, so anyway, I had to learn. And I think that was one of the things, again, when we talk about expectations and reality is, you know, you can't expect your spouse to have a personality that they don't have. You know, you have to, you know, work with their personality. Again, she's an introvert, I'm an extrovert, and I had to learn what that meant, you know, and I think that really helped us out going forward once we both understood who we were.
And once you learned that she couldn't be fixed.
Yes.
Or trivialize your problems. Yes. Because he always has a solution. Like, oh, that's nothing. Just do such a, no, I just wanted you to listen. I don't want you to fix it. Oh my goodness. Great. Okay, I want to ask you now, what is your spouse's love language? And what are some ways that you can show them that you love them? Yeah. And if you don't know your spouse's love language, you can tell me. If you know yours, you can tell me what yours is. Because
I know mine. I know mine.
Okay. So, all right. Since you know yours, we'll start with you. Go ahead.
I do know his love language.
So, okay. So Felicia's love language is definitely gifts. Primary, I would say, is gifts. And I found that out inadvertently when we were much younger. And I used to bring her a rose like on the first of every month, and she just loved that. I mean, I got the combination to her locker at school, and I would put a rose in the locker, you know, and that kind of, you know, it was just the greatest thing in the world. So anyway, I know that's her love language, and what I didn't understand was, as we got older, I wanted to get her, you know, more stuff, bigger stuff. And what I found out is that the love language doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be something big. Right. So for me now, it's maybe stopping to the grocery store and getting a Mr. Good bar and just sliding it under her pillow. And when she gets ready to go to bed at night, she'll see it in there. You know, just something to keep it kindled. So
yeah. Here is words of affirmation. He is very much propelled or pushed by knowing that he's doing a good job. And it's not that he has to know that he's doing a good job, but he likes to hear when he's doing something well. And I like to tell him when he's doing something well. So I definitely see that is his love language, but he's also physical touch. And I feel like sometimes maybe our love languages have kind of shifted a little bit over the years. Like in some seasons it's this and some seasons it's that, but I think definitely words of affirmation and physical touch are definitely his two love languages.
All right, let's start with Chris first.
Yeah, Deanna's is quality time and acts of service. So we definitely try to make sure that we spend quality time together. We get caught up with a lot of work, especially because I switched jobs and she has a big responsibility at her job, and then other things that we're involved in. We get kind of lose track of each other and kind of see each other in the house in passing. So we try to ensure that we make sure that we spend time and block off the time to say, hey, at this time on this date, we're gonna do this, and we stick to that. And then, of course, acts of service. I try to do things around the house to make sure that she knows that she's appreciated. Try to do things for her. I like to cook for her. I like to make. Sometimes she doesn't like some of the stuff that I do because I fry it, but but I try to surprise her every now and again, and I'll make something for her.
And his is definitely words of affirmation and quality time. He'll do something and you gotta make sure you acknowledge that he did it, and so I try to make sure that I notice things, did you clean the refrigerator? Look at you, and be genuine with it, because I know that that's not anything that I need. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. But I've learned that he needs that, affirmation that, hey, I noticed you did such and such, like, thank you, I appreciate that, and quality time as well. Even if you're not talking, you don't have to be talking, just being in the same room, or compromising on something to watch together. That's all part of quality time for him.
Okay. All right, honey, let's see if you know mine.
Yours is, you have a lot of them. You're like multilingual.
Multilingual, that's languages.
That's good.
Yeah, multi-love lingual.
Oh yes, I am.
I want to guess. Words of affirmation.
That's number one.
Look at me.
You did good. That's good.
Number two, gifts or acts of kindness.
Gifts, Yes.
I don't know anymore.
Yes. Okay. All right. For my husband, I would say yours are acts of service.
Yes. Me doing things for you.
Well, okay. The funny part of our love language is that there's a lot of love coming one way. Okay, because he loves acts of service, That's what he does for me.
Yes.
That's his number one. That is his number one. His number one, he loves acts of service. So he's always doing acts of service. So he always does a lot of little meaningful things for me. And sometimes I don't notice because it's not my number one. So, you know, he's like, you didn't notice anything, did you? And I'm like,
No.
oh, and I'm trying to rack my brain like, okay, wait. Oh, you cleaned my car. Hey. And he's like, no, I did that 2 days ago. You didn't notice that I shined up, you know, and so I try to be cognizant of it because I know that's his. So when he does it for me, I try to say, okay, that's right, he did it. Because if not, he will say, you didn't notice I cleaned the refrigerator for you. You didn't notice I did such and such for you. And again, it's because it's his love language. That's the kind that he tends to project onto me, in a sense, if that makes sense.
Mine is acts of service.
Yours is acts of service.
And what's yours?
Mine is words of affirmation. I prefer somebody just telling me, you know, because one of the things that he does, and he does do words of affirmation. Words of affirmation help me really, it boosts my self-esteem, it boosts my self-confidence, and that's the thing I feel like I need the most because I'm always constantly doubting myself. So when he gives me words of affirmation, I really feel the love, I feel the confidence, I feel, you know, the things that, you know, like I can conquer the world type of thing. So words of affirmation is definitely my first one. But, you know, they do change as life goes on. You know, I love gifts. You know, as you get older, gifts are really very meaningful. So things like that, I love.
Okay.
All right, very good. All right, couples. I want to ask you, how do you balance children or family obligation and prioritizing your marriage versus how do you prioritize your marriage with all the other things that you have to do? I heard the Randolphs talk about their demanding jobs, and I heard the Burses mention that they do still have children in the home. So how do you prioritize and make sure that you keep your marriage first? Let's start with the men this time.
Okay, I can start. What we try to do is we try to let the other person know well in advance what our schedule is and what we have going on. So that way we can prioritize our quality time. And then for like us, Fridays are our movie time. We have a movie night on Friday night. So we try to make sure that we don't schedule anything else during that time to make sure we that time dedicated to one another. So that's what. Oh, and Monday night, yes, Monday night is our cook night. We cook, and so we have our own little aprons that we put on, and we cook together. Fun talking and just sharing during that time.
All right.
Yeah, for us, I mean, it's about being intentional, scheduling, devoting time. I think one of the things we do now, I have a very, very demanding job. So, you know, where we used to watch movies in the evenings or do other things, sometimes when I get home, it's dinner and bed. So we started, and it actually, it's kind of funny. It started through a hard conversation we were having on one Friday night, and the next thing we know, it was Saturday morning, and we said, let's go get some breakfast. So we went to Cracker Barrels, and that's become our new thing. Saturday morning, 6:30, Cracker Barrel breakfast, and you know, we spend that time together, and we don't rush back home. And that's the beauty of having slightly older children now. But we don't rush back home, and we had to be intentional because what we were used to doing wasn't working. And in order to keep the flame going and to keep ourselves prioritized, we had to identify what was the best time. And again, and that's another key, is find out when the best time is, because we can't do it at night because I'm tired, or, you know, she's had a long day. So we had to find out when we're both at our best and devote that time to each other. That way she gets my best and I get her best.
That's very good. Very good. All right. Honey, you want to join in?
One thing I think we do is, because our children are older, they're adults, but as our parents get older, we do more now for our parents. And I believe one thing that we do is, if your mother has a need, if my father has a need, we don't put restraints on one another, but we inform one another. You'll say, no, honey, my mom needs X, or I'm going to do this for my mom. Or I'll say, honey, my dad needs, Y. I'm going to do this for my dad. Or when my sister was ailing. I think we inform one another, and we get buy-in to help in that area, because it is family that we do care about.
Right.
But we're also cognizant of the fact that whatever you're doing, whatever I'm doing outside of the house has an effect on me as well.
Right.
So it's a team approach, but again, we inform one another.
Yeah. And when it comes to spending time together, we actually spend a lot of time together. We have that benefit now, which we didn't have earlier on in our marriage, but now that the kids are gone, and mostly,
Yes.
and they're adults now. So, we're able to spend time together. So whenever we want to carve out some time, we can just go off to, whatever we have to do. We don't have the restraints of, having to be home for the kids or being back by a certain time. One thing that I do enjoy is we're breakfast people also. I heard you guys mention Cracker Barrel, and we're breakfast people. So we try to eat breakfast together. So at night, sometimes we even plan, okay, tomorrow for breakfast, we're going to have, do we need to go to the store and get something so we can have such and such for breakfast? So it becomes it's a big deal for us. And it's something that we do together. And then sometimes, even though you get up earlier than I do, and I come down later, you'll wait, you'll just have your coffee and you'll wait. And then I'll be like, did you eat breakfast? And you'll say, no, I was waiting for you. So then we spend the time and we, fix our breakfast together and eat breakfast together, which I think is a special time that we spend together. So how about you ladies?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Where are you going?
No, that's fine. For us, because the kids are not in the house, but they're still kids, I make sure that if I know that he hasn't talked to the kids all day, I'll leave him alone and let him have time to spend time with the boys. And one thing that we decided when we got married was every decision that we make for the house, we make them with the boys in mind as well. And so size of the house, and what would they need when they come, even financially, just making sure that we always include them in our decisions, because that's still our familial obligation. So and still also spending time together, spending time with the boys, and spending time separately. I think each of those are absolutely necessary. And so we decided to do that when we first got married, and we've been sticking to it, and it's been working out well.
I think Dirk does a much better job of balancing when it comes to the kids, because Saturday mornings, he's like, it's time to go eat breakfast. And I'm like, okay, well, Nicholas or the kids, and he's like, he'll be okay. He can eat cereal. Let's go. So and not just with that, but just throughout, raising our children, I think he definitely has done a much better job when it comes to balancing. And I think some of it comes from because a lot of my time I've spent at home, working from home or being home with my kids. And so they became a big part of my life. Being a mom became a big part of who I was. And so he has to remind me that the kids are growing, the kids are growing up, and one day the kids are all going to be gone, and it's just going to be me and you. So what are we going to do then? So that just kind of keeps me, in a headspace of thinking, yes, my kids are important, but they're not more important than the relationship that I have with my husband. And I have to be intentional about making sure that I don't place them ahead of him. and I'm just going to be honest, it's hard for me sometimes because this is just what I've done. I've always been home with my kids. So that can be difficult for me to say, well, but they need this. And he's like, yeah, but I need this. So I do have to work on that, and I'm mindful of that, but he does a really good job of making sure, like pulling me out of the house or saying, put your coat on, let's go, we're leaving. So he keeps me balanced in that area. So it's tough, but it is manageable.
Yeah, that's very good. When we one of the things that we did growing up is we didn't make the kids our entire life. I see a lot of couples make their children their entire life, and even a lot of women, from what I've noticed, they shift from wife to mother, and you know, it's so the husband kind of gets left in the background. But one of the things that we did, we were very, very intentional to even let our kids know that yes, we're a family, but this is a relationship right here. We're not gonna let you guys come between us or anything else come between us. So we made that was pretty important to us. And so we were, even when the kids were young, we would find ways to carve out time together. And as a matter of fact, I was thinking, and honey, you may remember this, when the kids were very, very young, we were just early in marriage, and you were working like 2 and 3 jobs. And so it was almost impossible for us to find time together because he was constantly working day job, night job, in between jobs. And one of the things that I remember doing is I remember I got to see him come home between 2 and 3 in the morning. So what I would do is I would have his food ready in the microwave, and I would set my clock, and I would wake up at 2 in the morning, I'd get up, and I'd go out there and I fix his plate, sit down with him, and watch him eat and tell him, kind of about the day, what the kids did, because this is the only way he really got to know more about the kids, because he was constantly working. So I would tell him, what the kids did, what I did that day, and that was kind of like our little time together that we got to spend together. And then he may catch a little cat nap and then head on back to work. So we did that until we could do better. And then, but any time that we could carve out for each other, I felt that it was very necessary and very important to maintain a thriving relationship. All right, now I want to ask you guys, what do hard conversations look like in your marriage? When are you doing it best, and how do you frame them, and what are the boundaries that you just won't cross, and how do you make the most of them to be productive? And you're thinking, let's see, who's gonna go first?
I can start. Fine. I can say he does a lot better job with hard conversations than I do. As much as I talk, that's how I think too. And so because that's how I process, I know I don't need you to hear everything in my process. And so what I found is God knows him better than I know him. And I've learned that you can say the same thing 2 different ways to the same person, and they'll take it 2 different ways, even though you meant it one way. And so I always ask, so I always tell them, like, you got to give me a minute. We've already decided you don't never try to address one another when you're in the height of an emotion, no matter what emotion that is. If you're extremely sad, extremely mad, even extremely happy, because then there's might be stuff that you don't say that you should say. So when you're in the height of an emotion, don't say nothing. And I'll go off and I'll talk to God and be like, okay, this is what I mean. How do I say that in a way that he would receive it in the way that I mean it? And what I've learned is that a lot of times it's really just a breakdown in communication. That's all it is, because you're coming from one place, I'm coming from another place. There are no winners and losers. And so at the end of the day, respect one another. We don't call names or anything like that, but respect one another. And communication is a 2-way street. So it's not just, I just got to get my point out. I got to get my point out, but I want you to understand what I'm trying to say, and I want to understand what you're trying to say. So we give each other time to talk with no interruptions, which is very, very difficult for me. And we give each other time to listen to one another. And we'll keep trying to restate until we understand fully, okay, let's try it one more time. I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I still didn't get it. Until we can fully understand where each other is coming from. So I think that's kind of where our hard conversations, what that looks like. And like I said, boundaries is don't say anything at any height of any emotion.
Yeah. One, hard conversations, they have to happen. But when we have them, we've agreed to make sure that we're doing them with respect and of course, with honesty. As she kind of mentioned, in our normal conversation, because believe it or not, I'm not really a big talker. I get straight to the point, and even when I'm because I'm brief. Even when I'm being brief, she kind of will jump in, and I really can't even get to my point because she'll start talking.
I believe that. And
that'll go to another side conversation, to another side, and then 2 hours later, I've still not even made my point. And so that's one of the things that when we're having a discussion, we try to make sure that I get my point out. But with me also too, because I'm so brief, sometimes I don't explain stuff thoroughly enough. In my mind, I'm like, I know what I'm talking about, but she has no idea where I'm trying to get at because I'm so brief sometimes. So sometimes I have to say, okay, all right, let me slow down. Let me give you this background. Let me give you this information. And now let me give you the information going forward. So of course, she said with the boundaries, respect, we don't yell at each other. We don't disrespect each other by name calling, things of that nature. And trying to be productive about our discussions. At a minimum, if we don't totally resolve the issue, we try to make sure that the other person understands what it is that we're talking about, what we're in a disagreement about. So that way we have a full understanding of what it is that we're trying to accomplish in the conversation. So that's what we try to do.
Oh, and not in public.
And yes, and not
that's a good point.
And that's very good. Yes, and that's very good. That's key advice for anyone. Do not have the hard conversation in public. One of the things that we do is we talk about a lot of stuff, so it's hard. We don't have hard conversations very often because we're pretty transparent and pretty much we can talk to each other about pretty much anything. Some things I have to kind of work. I still kind of have to kind of work up my nerve to finally say. And it's so funny because once I say it, it's like no big thing, of course. But just trying to work my nerve up to doing it sometimes is a big deal. But for him, he just says it and we move on and we move on from it. And then some things we definitely get to a point where we have to say, you know what?